Be me. I work as a county assessor. I mostly deal with things like land records and property disputes. I am not going to mention my state or city because I do not want to give away anything personal. I certainly don't want to get involved in something beyond me or lose my job. Basically, the job is pretty straightforward and it is not as draining as you might think. Every now and then, I get calls to check on properties for title disputes or land sales. Most of the time, it just involves measuring plots, confirming boundaries, verifying zoning, that kind of boring shit. Very occasionally, I have stumbled upon something that does not add up, usually to do with unsavory individuals or some kind of scheme or scam. This one time I want to tell you all about is something I have never ever gotten to the bottom of, and I want your opinion on it, X. So, there was this guy named Carl H. I am not going to give his last name for obvious reasons. That was the name he gave me anyway. I question now whether it was just an alias. Anyway, he was trying to sell his grandfather's property. It was a rural property, out in the middle of nowhere really. The land had been in his family for generations. He told me that it had been his grandfather's lifelong dream to leave it to him and keep passing it down through the family. There was a problem though. The county records showed that there were two different houses on the property. One was built in the 1940s, after the war had ended. I assume this was the one he was having me assess. But the records show a second one was built in around 1993. Carl swore to me that there was only one house on the land, just the one farmhouse where his grandfather lived. Because of these records, Carl could not sell his land until the discrepancies in the record were rectified. Because of this, the county sent me to verify this. I drove out there the day after I was informed of the job, a Tuesday afternoon. It was a long drive out from the city, mostly just shitty, unkempt back roads. Pretty much no cell service unless you got lucky jumping around on a hill. It's the kind of place just left to be taken by time. When I arrived, the farmhouse was exactly in the condition I expected, old and run down. Everything overgrown with ivy and moss everywhere. Nothing unusual at all. His story about his grandfather living here and passing it down seemed to check out at first glance. I marked it down as a one-house property. I checked the maps again. The record said that the second house was located northwest of the farmhouse, just up a small hill. I checked the GPS, but there was no indication of any other structure around. I had a quick chat with Carl, and he basically just said the same things I had been told by my boss and that I had written down in my notes. I asked if it was okay for me to go and walk the land, and he said that was fine. I set off toward where the records say the second house should have been. It was about a 10-minute walk in total, nothing too grueling. The trees seemed denser out at this part, the grass a little taller. Seemed like it hadn't been disturbed by anyone in years. I would be lying if I did not feel a little off. In my defense, I don't fuck with spooky stuff. Even ghost stories make me shit my pants. That's just the kind of atmosphere my family raised me in. Very religious and aware of things like spirits. Something caught my eye while I was walking along out there. It was small, something like a clearing, almost hidden just between the trees. I was thinking I'd maybe find the knocked-down foundation of the house that was on the records. Maybe his father had it demolished some years ago. That is not what I found. I found a door. Not like a random door standing up in the middle of the woods. This isn't some no-sleep story. It was a wooden basement door, flush with the ground, almost like it had been buried. The door looked old and forgotten and dusty. I knelt down and wiped some of the dirt off of it. There was a padlock on it. It wasn't an old padlock though. It looked almost brand new. Yeah, now I was really shitting it. Either this guy was yanking my chain, or he was straight up lying to me. At the same time, it was giving me the creeps, and I was hoping for some kind of logical explanation. I did a cursory look around, looking for some knockdown building, searched every tree and bush around. Nothing at all. I checked the padlock and the door again. Yep, definitely fresh, gleaming metal with no rust. There was no key in sight, and the lock looked too sturdy to be broken off. The ground was rock solid, so digging down through it was a no-no. Only way in would be to cut it open. I had two options: go and call Carl and ask him what the deal was, or go straight to my boss and tell him what I found. Like the dumbass I was, I chose a secret third option. I headed back to the farmhouse and decided to take a closer look at the land records and dig through his grandfather's paperwork. I went back and asked Carl, and he seemed confused, almost hesitant at my request, but eventually said sure. I did end up finding something in his grandfather's old files. I found a ledger, a thick one that had been tucked away in the back of a drawer. It was old, dating back to when his grandfather had originally bought the land, end of World War II. I flipped through and found some handwritten notes about land purchases and taxes and other general thoughts, an insane amount of detail. He kept notes on the house pretty much until he passed away. I found lots of mentions of the second building. Even up to his death, he had notes insisting it be kept hidden and that the original plan stays the same. Lots of things I did not understand about lodges and meetings and about sealing it away for later. There were notes on the last page, just before he passed away, saying that his will was all written out and ready. I never asked Carl how his grandfather died, but I assume he had a terminal illness or he knew something was coming. He mentioned how the will would pass on the house to Carl, but that another member will collect it once everything has been rectified. I mean, it just didn't make sense. There was the basement door, but no sign of a full house. It just didn't exist anymore. And then all this meticulous planning, and passing it on to Carl, only for it to be transferred. Was this some kind of tax or insurance fraud that I was too stupid to work out? Either way, I confronted Carl about the whole thing to see if he could make sense of it. Something had to be hidden somewhere. Carl was in the other room, just sipping coffee. When I told him though, he seemed nervous. Not surprised, not concerned, just really nervous. I asked him about the ledger, and his face went white. He did not respond. I then mentioned what I found about the second house and the basement door. He seemed really shaky now, cut me off from saying anything further. He started almost pleading with me, telling me how I didn't understand, how I couldn't go near that door or the second house, no matter what. I tried to calm him down, but he just kept on rambling how he did not think anyone would find it, about how he did not want the property or to deal with it, but that they made him do it. I asked him straight up, who the fuck made you do it? And do fucking what? He just said it was the developers that were behind the whole thing, and that's why the records were all messed up. He kept going on and on how they did not want anyone to know, and that they wanted the land for themselves, and instructed his grandfather to build that house. Said his grandfather had to follow all their instructions to be inducted and keep records for them. I just looked at him like he was fucking crazy and was like, dude, what are you talking about? Told him to calm the fuck down and start making sense, that he was going to be in serious trouble if there was fraud going on. I asked him if there was someone I could get in contact with to sort everything out, and he told me no. He freaked the fuck out, started throwing things, trashing the place, saying he was done if anyone found out the truth. He started threatening me and throwing shit at me, and I left. I feared for my safety and was not paid nearly enough to deal with the shit. Whether he was having a mental breakdown from grief or if he was just in a medicated schizo, it was nothing to do with me. I got back and reported all of my findings back to my boss. Told them how he reacted, how I could not finish up because of the physical violence. I was just told not to worry and that the situation will be sorted out by him and the authorities. I never heard anything about it again. I asked for an update from my boss at one point, but he would not go into any details and just told me it was straightened out. I did some digging by myself. It was a real bitch to find anything on that land at all. Only physical records, nothing digitized, which I suppose is not too weird considering the age of the place. Anyway, there is some company that over the years has been buying up huge swaths of land around the area in rural locations. It's not a company I've ever heard of before, but could easily be a shell company, I suppose. There are some old zoning maps of the land that have restricted area labels around the property, but they are not recent. They date back around the 1970s. So, yaks, that is about all I have to go on. I did not get assassinated in my sleep. I didn't get, spooky mysteriously fired, and I did not up and just quit my job the same day and never go back or mention it again, like all these liars say in their stories. I am just genuinely baffled as to what was going on there. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. Great-grandfather was very young, and his grandfather was still around. Village was under some corruption of sorts. People became really ill. Cows died from day to day. Fruit trees gave bad fruit. There was some talk of a bruja, a witch. In most Mexican lore, you would hear that the witch was some person from the village who took up evil powers, much like Navajo skinwalkers. Above the village, there was some wild vulture. People called them zopilote. Everyone knew that had to be the bruja. In the weeks, the bad stuff started to happen. The vulture started appearing, flying over the villages, sometimes getting inside the houses. It had this near-human, mocking laugh like, ha ha ha, that it gave whenever something bad was found out. My great-grandfather's father caught on quick and knew that something had to be done. He would observe it fly, and whenever it came down, he would lunge at it with a machete, struck it badly, like it was nearly tattered. The vulture shredded into pieces, but still had life in it to fly away. Came back weeks later, with no signs of cuts. Meanwhile, they found dead cows in some ranch, their blood sucked out of them. The people of the village started getting mean, vicious dogs after this. Fast forward some months later, Vulture Bruja is still at his things, stealing small animals, chicks, kittens, piglets, and tearing them apart and eating them. Great-grandfather was warned by his dad to take the really mean dogs with him wherever he went because of the Bruja. Dogs acted tame on everyone, but barked like crazy whenever the vulture came flying about, like primal fear barking, vicious, gnarly mad dog barking. Great-grandfather was walking to get some aberrates from the store when suddenly the dogs started their mad barking. No vulture above. He looked around and found that there was an old man in dirty rags watching from the ditches. Dogs getting out of hand and start chasing the old man. Great-grandfather went towards them to keep them from killing the guy. When he came closer, he saw the old man was wrong-looking. Sharp talon hands, thin scaly legs. Great-grandfather caught a glimpse of his covered face. It was rat-like. The old man made his way towards him, while not bothering with the dogs, clinging on, biting his limbs. Great-grandfather stood there, paralyzed as it neared. Woke up at home. He blacked out for 2 whole days apparently. My father told him what happened. When he heard the barking dogs, he rushed out to find him, and took his machete with him. When he found him, He was just standing there with a vacant look on his face while the old man was still fighting the mad dogs for him clinging onto him. The old man ran away high speed when my great-great-grandfather got there. Mumps with the Bruja made people move away. They were escaping to other far villages. Fruit was inedible and livestock too sick. Calves died very young. My great-great-great-grandfather Archira took it to himself to hunt down and kill the Bruja for good. It took a week of spotting and trailing after the Bruja, watching the vulture flying miles about. Night came about. Archira and about 3 people found the forest where the thing flies to at night, and they found this bundle of twigs, small hut-sized thing. They see it because of this light emanating from it and find that it was some lit fire. So what did they do? The bravest man in the group got up and tucked his shirt out and hacked in the twigs, and in the bundle it was like a little sleeping house, and he saw sleeping men. He hacked it up, and when the man began screaming, all other men started barging in with their machetes and hacked the old man again and again all night, and when they were sure the old man was nothing but ribbons of flesh, they burned down the Bruja's forest and came back that afternoon with a holy man and buried everything under stone. The whole thing was later graphically explained to every kid in my village, even great-grandfather, because there should always be someone who knows how to kill one of those things. Well, I got a few, but this is one of them. I live in a rural area close to the forest. It was about 12 a.m. at night, full moon. I needed to take out the trash cans, but I need to take a dump first. I proceed to walk to the bathroom, but to do so, I have to go through this big room with giant windows. The moon is shining through the glass. Nice view. Reach the bathroom. Ugh, the toilet is clogged and I can't take a dump. I leave. As I'm heading back, I see some weird flickering of the moonlight, as if someone was passing their hand in front of a flashlight. Grab my gun just in case. Proceed to go out and move trash cans. While I'm moving one of the trash cans, I see the trees move. They are swaying more and more. What the fuck? I head back to get another trash can. As I'm heading back, this random car pulls over, flashing a gigantic flashlight towards the trees. I look back. The trees are almost swaying, as if someone is shaking them. I ask the driver what he is doing here. He just starts laughing maniacally, then turns off the giant flashlight. I say fuck it and shine my keychain light on him. He is smiling like a maniac, looks like trash, hair is a mess, his teeth are almost non-existent. He opens the door. He is getting out. Oh shit. I pull my gun out. He then shuts his car door and drives off at like 50 miles per hour. I'm just standing there, frozen. Get a feeling I am being watched. Don't want to turn around. I feel like I'm going to brick my pants. Trees are still swaying. There is no wind. As I turn around, I see this huge, ugly-ass Bigfoot/werewolf thing. It's like 20 feet tall. It's shaking the trees with little effort. Oh hell no. I shoot it like 5 times. Nothing happens. Proceed to mag dump. Nothing happens. It stops shaking the trees. It turns to look at me with a death stare. I brick my pants. Run back to the house with poop running down my legs. I'm trying not to piss myself. Get my hunting rifle. Head upstairs onto a balcony. By this time, piss is trickling down my legs. I look for it. It's gone. Go downstairs and make sure every door is locked. Lock every window. Go to bathroom and shower. Spend the rest of the night just waiting, holding on to my rifle. Eventually fall asleep. Wake up a few hours later. Look outside. Nothing unusual, except the trees look like there was a tornado or something. Spend the rest of the month weirded out. I barely went anywhere back then. I had not left my property for about a week or 2. Wasn't about to let it get totaled. It was expensive and valuable to me, although I mostly didn't leave due to being scared of even stepping outside. Wasn't too bad though. I was stocked up on food, so I was good for a while. As a child, there was one house that we lived in that I will always call home. My parents lived there when I was born, and we stayed there until I was 14 years old. That was what I knew, and all I knew. You figured out all the best hiding places. You knew where each creaky floorboard was to avoid being caught. You could walk through it with your eyes closed. That is how this home was for me. But sadly, my family was not immune to the housing crash. After my dad was laid off and had to accept a lower paying job, they could no longer afford our home, and the only thing we could do, much like many others, was just to leave it. I may have been 14, so while I understood not being able to afford things, it still hurt. I did not want to leave. That was what I knew. Thankfully, we did stay close enough for me to stay in the same school, but we definitely downsized from there. We slowly moved more and more south, until we eventually moved from Ohio to Kentucky. Over time, it got easier, and I got used to the moving. Maybe it was because I never got attached to a place like I did with our first home, who knows. But then, things have a funny way of working out. My 10-year high school reunion was coming, and now that I was living in a different state, a few hours away, I was not intending on going. But then I saw a girl from my class that I had a huge crush on reached out to me, asking if I was going to be there. She wanted to get together to catch up, and it just so happened that I was single at the time, so I jumped on the opportunity. I took the time off, told my parents I was going back to Ohio. No, I did not live with them, but I still told them when I left town, and made plans to spend a few days up there. The reunion was fun. I reconnected with some old friends, and got to talk a lot with the girl I mentioned, Jessica. We made plans to meet up the next day, and I headed back to my hotel in a great state of mind, reminiscing about my childhood when I got that itch to drive by my old house. I just wanted to see what it looked like nowadays, that was all. I was not expecting what I saw. The place still looked abandoned, or, again, maybe there were no signs taped to the door, and the two big windows in the front were boarded up. It was definitely not being used. I parked in front of the house for several minutes, just looking over it and trying to imagine running around the front yard with my little brother. After sulking some, I got the stupid idea of checking it out from the inside. I did not know who all still lived in the neighborhood, and I did not want someone to call the cops, so I knew I could not just stay there and walk in. I drove over to the little gas station around the block, parked my car, and walked back. I walked along the sidewalk down the driveway, and then quickly walked around the back, opening the gate with a rock trick that I used as a kid. I don't know why, but I thought I would try the back door, not expecting it to just work. But it did. It wasn't locked, so I stepped in. There was certainly a flood of emotions as I stepped into what was the kitchen. All the hanging cabinets had been ripped from the walls, the wallpaper peeling where they once were. The cream-colored paint now looked grey in my flashlight, with streaks of yellow running down the walls, most likely nicotine stains. I will mention that my parents did not smoke. Everything had dust on it, but some had thicker layers than others, showing me what was possibly last touched or moved. I moved into the living room and saw the giant old entertainment center still in its place. The glass was broken out, but otherwise it was still standing strong. Made sense. I remember that my dad did not want to move that thing. The shiplap walls were starting to warp and splinter near the base, like they had gotten wet or damaged. But what I noticed the most in the living room was the smell. It was quite a stomach-turning stench. There was, of course, the smell of mold or mildew, which immediately made me grab my shirt to cover my face. But then there was another distinct smell. It was almost like something rotting, but I could not quite determine what it was. At first, I just chalked it up to being the house in general. It pretty clearly had been sitting empty for a while, so who knows what had been left behind and left out to spoil and decay. I told myself I needed to leave, but I could not go without first seeing my bedroom, so I walked down the right hall and slowly opened the door. To my surprise, it was the least damaged room. It was empty, as I did not leave one thing behind of mine, but there was a small pile of what I think was clothing in the corner of the room. I sat in the middle of the floor again, just taking in the moment before I finally said it was time to go, if not because of the smell alone. As I started to leave, however, I remembered my secrets in my closet. Sometimes, I would hide in there and write or draw on the inner wall. It was the one place my parents never looked, so I did not get in trouble for writing on them. I wanted to revisit my old handiwork, knowing if the house was in this condition, it probably had not been painted over. I held my phone with my light on in one hand and pulled open the closet doors with the other. I did not get to see my old artwork. Instead, crumpled up on the closet floor, I saw a body. By the state of it, they had been dead for some time, which made me realize what the smell was that still lingered in the air. I immediately ran out of the house and got sick in the yard. I had been walking through the house and sat in the same room as a corpse for at least half an hour. That's all I could smell. That is all I could say. Once I gathered myself, yes, I did call the police. I won't say I wasn't scared about getting in trouble myself, because I definitely was. My story did not sound suspicious at all. Yes, I just came to check out my old abandoned home and found the body. I swear, I would probably think they were suspicious too. I waited at the end of the driveway until police showed up, and I explained to them exactly why I was there and everything I did, everything I touched, and what I saw. They went in, and I slowly saw a few more cars and a coroner van show up. The neighbors across the street ended up watching from their porch too. After some time, one of the cops and a detective approached me and asked me when I used to live here, and I was honest. After a little small talk that seemed like the detective was just trying to keep me calm, he then informed me that looking at the state of the body, as well as the lack of disturbance of the surrounding area, he knew that I had no part in his death or moving the body. He then mentioned he assumed it was probably a squatter or someone looking for a place to sleep, and they most likely died of an overdose, as they did not immediately see anything on the body. I think he may have felt sorry for me with the way he handled me, but I did not care. I was successfully traumatized. I left my childhood home at the age of 14 unexpectedly. I returned just to reminisce, and instead, I was left worse off than what I was. He told me I was free to go, and said that they would call me again if they had any further questions. Not a paranormal story, but one where my mother nearly died. Be 11-year-old British guy. Summer of 2014, August specifically. Driving up the coast with my mum and dad to Newquay, alongside my friend Liam and his family for a holiday. Newquay is a seaside town in Cornwall on the North English coast, and it is fucking lovely, especially the beaches. Bit of a preface to my friend's family. Liam was a childhood friend of mine, was short, blonde and fat. He was a bit of a lad, but also fucking funny. Liam's dad, Mark, was a carpenter and a free-range parent, basically letting his kids act how they wanted to. Liam's little sis, Sophie, was not actually fat and was a very lovely young girl, but still very bratty. Alison, Liam's mother, was also very fat and generally was not a good parent. My parents are reasonably healthy, also very healthy. Been swimming since 8 years old and to this day. This was on a particularly stormy time of the day on the beach, which was dangerous as it was meant to be high waves, so we weren't meant to go out too far in the water because people could get trapped. Alison and Marcus just expect my parents to watch out for the kids and keep an eye on us all, generally being shit parents. My friend Sophie and my mother go out into the ocean because my mom was trying to catch up with her and keep her safe. The problem is that my mother was not a good swimmer and could get stuck in the water. The thunder of the beach gets stronger and also strengthens the waves, so they get higher and carry them both out further into the sea from the beach, only holding onto the surfing board for safety, and my mother starts yelling for help. I see her, and I start to cry out of fear for my mother's safety, along with Sophie, because I did not want to see my mother or a little girl die. I thought about swimming and dragging them back to shore, but then I realized I would be at risk too. Don't get me wrong, I've always been a big lad for my age, being 5'8" at 11 years old and 6'5" at 16, but I was not stupid, and I did not know how I'd carry a full-grown woman and a small child back to shore, so my instincts kicked in due to the adrenaline, and I rushed to a nearby guy with a surfboard, yelling and pleading for his help. He went out, saved my friend's sister and my mother. I was bawling my fucking eyes out at the fact that my mother nearly could have died and was scared. After that, my parents and I always looked out and kept tabs on each other at the beach, although for some reason, I was never permanently traumatized by the event, but I can still remember it like it was yesterday. I have one. Happened when I was a little shit. Still remember it vividly. Be me, 5 years old, sitting in the living room of the shitty trailer we lived in on my mom's lap, watching her play Super Mario Bros. Don't remember the time, but do remember it was late. would hazard a guess of somewhere around 2 to 3 a.m. Summertime in the south, so it's hotter than Satan's taint, so we have our windows rolled open. Was those weird, horizontal bar type you had to roll to open and close. The couch we were sitting on had its back against one of the windows, which faced out towards our backyard and part of the driveway. Give or take about 200 meters back was a pine thicket, with open ground between it and the trailer. Really getting into watching my mom playing, when I get yanked hard, backwards, towards the window. Mom jumps up, yelling like a banshee, grabs a bat that we kept next to the couch, and starts beating this arm that was reaching through the window and had a hold of me. I did not get a good look at it, so I can't tell you what it looked like. A neighbor heard my mom screaming and came bolting over with a gun and a mag light. I remember the mag light because it was a police light, and little May loved the police. Arm lets go of me. Mom breaks the window while still swinging at the thing, and the neighbor shines the light over and starts screaming and pops off 3 rounds. Neighbor comes beating on the door, yelling for my mom to open up, and by now, my 3 youngest sisters are awake as well. Mom lets him in. They start talking, and I remember hearing him say the police should be on the way because his GF called them when they heard my mom screaming. Police show up, take statements from Mom and the neighbor, while a police officer talks to me while they wait for EMTs to come check me out. Officer asked me if I remember seeing anything. I tell him I don't because I was too scared. He seems to like the answer I gave, then leaves me with the paramedics. The officer is talking to Mom and the neighbor looks scared, and talked amongst themselves for a while after they finished questioning the two. What I assume was the head officer on scene came up and talked to us, saying they were going to station a few cars in the area, as well as do some patrols for the next few days. He also told them to call the police ASAP if anything else like that happened again, and told the neighbor that they were okay to fire at the perpetrator if they need to keep us or themselves safe. The police start to slowly pull out while Mom and the neighbor talk. One car pulls down the road and stops in the bend of the driveway. Neighbor offers to let us all stay with them for the night, but Mom declines as she does not want her husband to get the wrong idea. Neighbor says that all she needs to do is yell and he will be over, and heads back to his place. Nothing ever comes of it, at least from what I know. Not a very good ending, but I legitimately do not know if anything came of it, nor would I even know where to begin looking into it.